Unaware she was a secret billionaire who had just inherited the very company his mother worked for, he spat on her at the family hangout that afternoon, an act so cold and humiliating it stunned every relative into silence. She stood there in her simple jeans and plain blouse. The quiet girl everyone assumed came from nothing, the same woman who once helped his struggling mother clean tables at the staff cafeteria. He mocked her poverty, sneered at her background, and treated her like a burden unworthy of their family name. But not even he knew she now owned the empire that paid their bills, fed their home, and wrote his mother's paycheck. He thought he was putting a nobody in her place, but she was the billionaire heiress with the legal power to change his mother's life forever. So why did she allow him to spit on her without reacting? Why did she hide her billionaire inheritance from the man who loved humiliating her? And what exactly did she do next that crushed him in a way he never saw coming? The laughter from the family hangout floated through the warm evening air, drifting between the wooden cabanas, the fire pits, and the smell of barbecued plantain. It should have been a peaceful Sunday, one of those rare moments when Lagos felt slow, when the chaos softened just enough for families to breathe. But for Maya Okafor, the woman everyone believed came from nothing, the day felt like standing at the edge of an unseen storm. Her eyes stayed fixed on the gravel beneath her sandals, on the tiny flecks of dust clinging to the hem of her jeans. The chatter around her dissolved into distant noise, plates clinking, children running, the hum of conversation. None of it mattered. What mattered was the tension radiating from the man pacing in front of her. Victor, her boyfriend of 2 years, her almost fiancé, the man whose family she had spent the last 12 months trying desperately to fit into. The same man who didn't know she just inherited the multinational empire where his mother had worked for 26 years. The empire that had once saved them when hospital bills nearly destroyed their family. The empire she'd kept hidden for reasons she could barely explain even to herself. He stopped his pacing abruptly and spun toward her, his jaw tight enough to crack bone. "You embarrassed me," he hissed under his breath, though half the relatives around them could hear every word. "How difficult is it to get a drink order right? I said sparkling water, not soda. Is that too much for you?" Maya inhaled slowly, willing herself not to react. She'd learned to do that with him, absorb the sharpness, swallow the sting. But today, something in the air felt different, electric, heavy, as if life itself waited for one wrong move. "I apologize," she said gently. "I offered to get another." "And that's the problem," he snapped. "You keep doing these small, stupid things. My family notices. Everyone notices. You think I don't hear the comments they make behind your back?" Her heart folded in on itself, but she forced her face to remain calm. She knew about the whispers, the snide remarks, the sideways glances. She'd heard Victor's aunt joke once that Maya must have followed him home from a bus stop. She'd caught his cousins laughing about her low-class clothes. None of them knew the truth, that she could buy every property on this street without denting her account. That while they mocked her simple blouse, she'd spent the last week in boardrooms negotiating a multi-billion-dollar takeover. A takeover that had ended with the shocking news. The CEO she'd thought of as a distant mentor, Chief Adewale, the man who'd always said she reminded him of his late daughter, had left her the entire company. But Victor didn't know that. His family didn't know that. Nobody here knew that the woman they treated like a domestic worker now owned the company that paid for their home, their vacations, their mother's pension. "Maya," Victor continued, his voice rising, "I bring you here to show my family you're trying. And you still manage to embarrass me. Even my mother said," his mother, the only person who had ever been genuinely kind to Maya, the woman who used to hand her an extra meat pie after closing hours, the woman who didn't know that her son had been spitting venom at the same girl who had the power to decide her retirement package now. But Victor wasn't finished. "Honestly," he said loudly, "sometimes I wonder why I keep trying with you. You act like you're doing me a favor by being here." She shouldn't have looked up. She knew it the moment their eyes met, because Victor saw something new in her gaze that he didn't like. Steel. The quiet steel of someone who no longer felt the need to beg for respect. And then, driven by some mix of insecurity and wounded ego, he did the unthinkable. He spat on the ground beside her foot, close enough that everyone gasped. His cousin dropped a fork. His aunt whispered, "Jesus." Children stopped running. Time froze. A warm breeze brushed her cheek, but she felt nothing. The world dimmed around her. She stared at the spittle on the sand, as if seeing the exact moment her old life shattered. Victor smirked slightly, chest heaving. "Now you understand your place." But he didn't know. He didn't know that the hangout they stood in was partially funded by her new company. He didn't know the inheritance document sat in her apartment safe. He didn't know that she held the power to rewrite every future connected to his family. And worst of all, he didn't know she had reached her limit. As she slowly lifted her gaze, the air stretched thin, so thin it felt like a veil between past and future. What she did next would crush him, but not yet. She whispered only 4 words, her voice steady, almost gentle. "Victor, your mother knows." His expression faltered, because something in her tone, calm, final, terrifyingly certain, hinted at truths he wasn't prepared for. Truths that would unravel his entire life. Victor's face tightened at her words, his confidence flickering like a candle caught in the wind. "My mother knows what?" he asked, forcing a scoff. "What nonsense are you talking about?" But the tremor in his voice betrayed him, because deep down, Victor knew Maya never spoke recklessly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She didn't play emotional games. When she said something calmly with that unsettling steadiness, it meant she wasn't guessing. She knew. Maya didn't answer him. Not yet. She simply stepped back, letting the weight of her silence hang over the gathering like an invisible cloud. Relatives watched with widened eyes, their expressions shifting between shock and discomfort. Some looked away, pretending to be occupied with their plates. Others leaned forward, hungry for the unfolding spectacle. Victor took a step toward her. "Maya," he said more quietly, "what does my mother know?" She stared at him for a long moment. His handsome face, sharp jawline, well-kept beard, perfectly fitted polo shirt, was the same face she once imagined would stand beside her at an altar. The same face she used to trace with her fingertips when they whispered about the future. But today that face looked small, insecure, childish. She finally spoke. "She knows kindness," Maya whispered. "She taught you none." A few relatives gasped. Victor blinked, stunned by her boldness. She wasn't yelling, wasn't crying, wasn't even angry. That was what unsettled him most. The version of Maya he could dominate. She had vanished. He grabbed her wrist. "Enough, we're leaving. Now." She didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. She looked down at his hand as if studying a stranger. "Let go," she said softly. The softness was the warning. Everyone felt it. He released her instantly as if burned. A voice broke through the tension. "Maya, my dear, are you okay?" Victor's mother approached, her brow creased with worry. She had always liked Maya, always defended her, always tried to soften Victor's rough edges when she thought Maya couldn't hear. A memory flashed behind Maya's eyes, 4 years earlier. A small cafeteria inside Ottawell Holdings headquarters. She was wiping down tables, exhausted after a 12-hour shift in the accounting support department. Victor's mother had walked in, struggling with heavy boxes of files. Maya had rushed forward to help her. That day they had talked for the first time, 2 women from different worlds, bound by something neither understood yet. Respect. Victor never knew that his mother used to confide in Maya about bills, fears, and dreams. He never knew how often Maya bought her small gifts when times were tough, and he definitely didn't know that Chief Ottawell himself had once told Maya, "Your heart is bigger than your salary could ever reflect." Now, his mother stood between them, scanning their faces. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling as she saw the spit on the ground. Victor panicked. "Mom, ignore her. Mom," Maya said gently, "can you walk with me for a moment?" The older woman looked confused but nodded. Victor stepped forward, but Maya lifted a hand, stopping him without touching him. "She asked me," Maya reminded him. The comment stung him so deeply his jaw tightened. Maya walked away, Victor's mother beside her, leaving murmurs behind. Victor watched them go, watched the one person whose approval he needed drift further from him, and something like fear crept into his chest. Just as they reached the quieter side of the garden, the soft amber lights began flickering on as dusk settled. Maya stopped near a stone bench and faced the woman who had treated her with more dignity than her own boyfriend. "My dear," the older woman said anxiously, "what's going on?" Victor looked frightened. Maya exhaled slowly. "Before I tell you anything, just know this. Nothing I'm about to say is meant to hurt you." "Me?" She blinked. "Why would I be hurt?" Another memory rose, this one sharper. 1 month ago, she had sat across from Chief Attewell in his hospital room. His frail hands had held the signed documents with trembling strength. "The board believes in you," he'd whispered. "I believe in you. But keep this quiet until the transition is stable. The enemies of wealth move too quickly." He'd passed away 3 days later. Now Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope. She placed it into the older woman's hands. "Read it," Maya said softly. The woman hesitated, then opened the envelope with slow, uncertain fingers. She scanned the letter, her eyes widening, narrowing, widening again. Her breathing shifted. "Maya," she whispered, voice shaking. "This letter, it says, you're the new majority owner of Attewell Holdings." Maya nodded. "And that means everything. My pension, my department, the factory branches, She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "My girl, my dear girl, you're the owner?" "Yes," Maya whispered. "As of last week." Silence expanded between them, not heavy but reverent. Then the older woman sank onto the bench, her hand trembling as she held the letter. "Oh, Maya, why didn't you tell my son?" Maya looked toward the hangout, where Victor now paced anxiously, his confidence cracking with every second she stayed away. "Because power changes people," she murmured, "and I wanted to see who he was before he knew who I became." Her voice thickened, not with sadness, but with clarity. "Today," she added, "he showed me everything." Victor's mother closed her eyes as if bracing herself against an unseen wind. What happens now?" Maya's gaze drifted back to Victor. "He crossed a line," she whispered, "and the consequences won't come from anger. They'll come from truth." She stood slowly, her silhouette framed by the last gold streaks of sunset. When she turned around, she saw Victor watching her with panic in his eyes. He knew something had shifted. He just didn't know how deeply his world was about to break. Victor watched Maya walking back toward the hangout with his mother beside her. And for the first time since he'd known her, he felt something he had never associated with Maya before. Fear. It unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Maya had always been predictable, quiet, gentle, easy to dismiss when he needed to feel superior. She rarely challenged him, never confronted him, never raised her voice, even when she had every right to. But the woman returning now wasn't the Maya he could twist into silence. She walked with a steadiness that made his palms damp. His mother, normally soft-spoken and slow-moving, looked shaken. Her fingers clutched a folded letter like it was a live ember. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Victor moved forward, trying to catch their eyes. "Mom? Maya? What's going on?" Neither of them answered. They walked past him without stopping. That scared him more than words would have. When your mother, your only cheerleader, refused to acknowledge you, something catastrophic was brewing. He followed them to the center of the gathering, where conversations died down naturally, as though the room sensed a storm approaching. Relatives glanced up from plates, cups, and half-finished laughter. Even the music seemed to soften. Maya didn't stand on a chair or raise her voice. She simply turned to face the group, her posture calm. That composure terrified Victor more than yelling ever could. He swallowed hard. "Maya," he said, attempting a forced laugh, "whatever this is, can we talk about it privately?" "No," she replied softly. Just that one word, small, soft, but solid enough to split the ground beneath him. Victor's mother stepped closer to Maya, her hands trembling as she held the letter. She looked at her son with an ache he didn't understand. "Victor," she whispered, you've made a terrible mistake today." He froze. "Mom, what are you talking about?" A flash of memory punched through Victor's chest. His mother lying sick in a hospital bed years ago. Bills piling up. His father out of work. His siblings hungry. A mysterious scholarship that saved him. A family support loan that came from the company's welfare fund. He had always assumed some anonymous board member approved it, or that it was a random act of corporate charity. He looked at Maya now, her face, her stillness, her silence. An uneasy thought slid into his head. No, it couldn't be. His mother's voice cracked. Victor, do you know who this girl is? Do you know who you spat on today? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Maya could have humiliated him right there. She could have announced the truth with the pride of someone reclaiming her dignity, but she didn't. She simply extended a hand toward his mother, silently giving permission for the older woman to speak. Victor's mother unfolded the letter with the fragility of someone handling her own fate. This letter, it's from Adewale Holdings' legal department. Her voice wavered. It confirms that Chief Adewale named Maya as the new majority owner. She now owns the company I've worked for more than 2 decades. A gasp rippled through the crowd like a wave. Plates clattered. Someone dropped a glass. A baby started crying from the shock of the adult's silence. Victor felt his blood thin. What? No, that's impossible. His mother held up the document. It's not impossible. It's true. Tears filled her eyes. The girl you humiliated today, the girl you spat on, is the billionaire who inherited the company that pays for our home, your siblings' tuition, my pension, your late father's medical debts, everything. He stumbled backward, almost tripping over a chair. Maya, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell anyone? She finally looked at him, really looked at him. You never asked who I was, she said quietly. You only told me who you thought I should be. The words pierced him deeper than any scream could. A relative whispered to another, this boy finished his own destiny today. Another said, how can you treat somebody like that? Heat crawled up Victor's neck. His bravado evaporated under the weight of his own family's disgust. Maya, please, he stammered, stepping toward her. I didn't know. You should have told me. Her voice remained calm. If you needed my wealth to treat me with dignity, then you didn't deserve the truth. His heart slammed painfully in his chest. Another memory stabbed at him. Maya bringing him lunch during his long work hours. Maya helping his siblings with school applications. Maya comforting his mother after his father died. And he had spent months snapping at her, belittling her, treating her like a placeholder until something better came along. Embarrassment twisted into panic. Maya, he swallowed. Please, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Her eyes softened, not with affection, but with pity. I didn't come here for revenge, Victor. I came because your mother invited me. She deserved honesty today. He flinched. She turned to his mother. I won't let your job be touched, or your pension, or your department. None of this is your fault. The older woman burst into tears and hugged her, clinging like someone embracing salvation. Victor watched his mother hold Maya tighter than she had ever held him. It broke him. He reached out. Maya, please just talk to me. Don't end us like this. She stepped back from his mother and looked at him with the finality of a closing door. There is nothing to end, she whispered. There was never an us. There was you, and the version of me you believed I should stay. His knees trembled. The relatives watched him unravel, but none stepped forward. Even his own cousins looked away. Finally, Maya took a slow breath, then said the words that shattered him completely. Victor, your mother knew kindness. You chose cruelty, and life eventually gives us all what we give others. She turned away. For the first time in his life, Victor realized he was about to lose something priceless, and it had nothing to do with money. The hangout slowly resumed its scattered noises, but nothing felt normal. Conversations turned into whispers, whispers turned into stares, and the stares eventually turned into a heavy silence that followed Maya as she headed toward the exit. Victor stood frozen where she had left him, jaw tight, chest rising and falling too fast. eyes glossy with disbelief. He'd always imagined he'd be the one walking away from her someday. He never imagined she would walk away first, and certainly not with the quiet, controlled dignity that made him feel like he'd shrunk into something small and forgettable. But Maya wasn't leaving to be dramatic. She was leaving because she had to breathe. Her steps carried her past the wooden cabanas and the fire pits glowing with fading embers. The smell of grilled plantain drifted softly, mixing with the evening breeze. She didn't want to cry. Tears felt pointless after everything, but her chest ached with the kind of pain that didn't need tears to prove it existed. She reached her car and leaned against it, letting her head rest against the cool metal. Night was settling, turning the sky into a soft navy blanket. Her phone buzzed unexpectedly, a message from a number she had saved under Adawale Legal. Transition meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Board wants confirmation of leadership structure. Press release tentative for Friday, pending your approval. Maya closed her eyes. In another life, a different timeline, she would have run to Victor with this news. She would have thrown her arms around him, breathless with excitement, telling him she had just inherited one of the most powerful business empires in Africa. She would have pictured his proud smile, his tight embrace, his words of encouragement. But that was another world, a world where love wasn't conditional, where respect wasn't rationed, where kindness wasn't a currency he spent only when convenient. That world had never existed. She exhaled slowly, her breath forming a small cloud in the cool evening air. Behind her, she heard hurried footsteps. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Maya, Victor called, his voice raw. Please, just talk to me. She stayed still. He stopped a few steps away, chest heaving. I messed up. I know I messed up. Please don't walk away like this. Like this? She echoed softly, turning to face him. Victor, you spat at me. He flinched. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, she said calmly. People don't accidentally spit on others, Victor. It came from somewhere real. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. In the faint glow of the parking lot lights, Victor didn't look like the self-assured man she once dated. He looked lost, like someone waking up from a dream and realizing the world wasn't what he assumed. Maya, I was angry, he said weakly. You embarrassed me in front of my family. And you've been embarrassing me in front of yours for months, she replied. But the difference is, I never tried to humiliate you to feel bigger. He stepped closer. I didn't know, Maya. I didn't know who you were. Her voice remained steady. That's the problem. You treated me poorly because you assumed I was nobody. Your respect for me was conditional on my background, my wealth, my usefulness. He rubbed his face with both hands. I thought we were going to build a future together. No, she said, shaking her head slowly. You thought you were going to build a future where I stayed small enough to worship you? He closed his eyes. A beat of silence passed, then another. His next words came out broken. I never wanted to hurt you. Hurt doesn't require intentions, she murmured. Only actions. He swallowed hard. Can we fix this? Please. Tell me what to do. Anything. I'll change. Maya lifted her gaze, studying him carefully. His eyelashes trembled. His breath shook. His pride had collapsed, but his desperation didn't move her, not the way it once would have. She'd spent too long shrinking herself to fit into someone else's idea of worth. Victor, she said quietly, you didn't lose me because I became a billionaire. You lost me because you thought I wasn't worth basic respect when you believed I had nothing. The truth hit him like a blow to the stomach. He stumbled back, gripping the edge of a bench for support. Memories assaulted him. Maya walking in the rain to bring his mother medication. Maya helping his siblings with scholarships. Maya sacrificing her weekends to help him prepare for job interviews. Maya listening patiently to every frustration he vented. Maya excusing every insult he threw. And him, offering nothing but entitlement in return. Maya, please, he whispered, but she shook her head. I'm not going to punish you, Victor. I'm not going to destroy your mother's job or your family's stability. I'm not vengeful. He stared at her with a mixture of relief and despair. But, she continued, I am done letting you rewrite who I am. A single tear slid down his cheek before he could stop it. I didn't know today would be the day I'd lose you." Her voice softened, but it wasn't the softness of love. It was the softness of letting go. "People lose things they don't value," she whispered. "And today, you lost me long before you knew who I was." He collapsed onto the bench as she unlocked her car door. "Maya!" he cried, his voice cracking into something almost childlike. She paused, looking at him one last time. "Goodbye, Victor." Then she got into her car, closed the door with quiet finality, and drove away, leaving him staring at the fading taillights of the woman he never really saw. The next morning, Lagos awoke with its usual symphony of honking cars, bustling sidewalks, and the warm haze of sunrise brushing over glass towers. But in a quiet corner of the city, inside the glass-walled conference room of Adewale Holdings headquarters, a different kind of storm was gathering. Board members whispered among themselves as they reviewed documents, tablets, and reports. At the head of the table sat an empty leather chair, one that had belonged to Chief Adewale for more than 2 decades. Today, that chair would be filled by his successor. Maya stood outside the conference room for a moment, her hand resting lightly on the door handle. The glass reflected her face, calm, solemn, and sharper than it had ever looked before. She thought of Victor, the way he had collapsed onto that bench last night as if his world had crumbled. She had driven away without looking back, but the image lingered in her memory like the final scene in a book she had just closed. She inhaled slowly, straightened her blazer, and pushed the door open. Conversation stopped instantly. Every head turned toward her. The room didn't erupt in applause. It didn't need to. The silence itself was an acknowledgement of her new power. She took the seat at the head of the table, her fingertips brushing the cool leather as if anchoring herself to the new chapter unfolding beneath her. "We can begin," she said, her voice steady. For the next 2 hours, Maya led the meeting with strength no one had seen, coming from the girl who used to run financial audits quietly in a side office. She understood every department, every branch, every policy. She didn't just inherit the empire, she had earned it through years of grit, unnoticed brilliance, and the trust of a dying man who had seen in her what the world dismissed. But beneath her professionalism, one thought lingered like a shadow: Victor. Not because she wanted him, not because she missed him, but because power had a way of revealing what mattered. And what mattered now was closing every emotional door he had once walked through. After the meeting, as she stepped into the elevator, her phone vibrated. It was a voice message from Victor's mother. With a quiet sigh, Maya pressed play. "Maya, my dear, I don't know how to thank you. Everything you told me last night, everything you spared us from, I'm grateful. But Victor hasn't slept. He sat outside my door all night crying like a boy. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable. I just think maybe he needs to understand fully. He needs closure, and maybe you need it too." Maya closed her eyes. Closure. The word wrapped itself around her like a soft thread, pulling her backward. After a long moment, she pressed the elevator button for the ground floor. Not because she owed Victor anything, but because she deserved a clean ending. Victor sat on the front steps of his mother's house, his elbows resting on his knees, his eyes hollow from hours of replaying the previous evening. He'd apologized to her 20 times, but she had barely spoken to him. Not out of anger, but out of heartbreak. He kept hearing her voice trembling as she said, "You spat on the girl who once bought my medicine with her own salary." Every time he remembered it, he felt sick. When a quiet car pulled in, he didn't look up at first. It wasn't until her footsteps approached that he lifted his head. Maya stood a few meters away, dressed simply, her face unreadable. He swallowed hard. "You came." "I came to end this the right way," she said softly. He stood slowly, hands shaking. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I know sorry isn't enough, but I mean it. You didn't deserve anything I did to you." She looked at him, not with love, not with anger, but with clarity. "Victor," she said, "I didn't come because I wanted an apology. I came because I want you to understand something." He waited, breath held. "You didn't break me," she said. "You disappointed me. That's different." His eyes brimmed. I know. And you didn't lose me yesterday, she added. You lost me the first time you made me feel small and called it love. He swallowed a sob. But, she continued, you also helped me see what kind of future I want and what kind I refuse to accept. He lowered his head. I don't know how to fix myself after this. She took a deep breath. Start by treating people kindly even when you think they have nothing to offer you. True character shows most in moments where power feels one-sided. He nodded slowly, tears dropping onto his hands. And Victor, this isn't punishment, she said. It's release. For both of us. He lifted his gaze, desperate. Is there any chance, any possibility that someday... No, she said gently. Not because of the wealth, but because you never valued me before it. He broke down fully then, sinking onto the steps like a man kneeling at the grave of something precious. Maya turned toward the car, pausing only once. Goodbye, Victor, she whispered again. But this time the word wasn't painful. It was final. She left him there, alone with his regret, his mother's silence, and the reality that love built on ego was never love at all. As Maya drove away, the city skyline stretched before her, bright, open, alive. Her new life didn't begin with revenge. It began with freedom, and sometimes that was the most powerful ending of all.